Welcome to the Stiff Arm. I'm still Ron Mexico. Well, 2 down, 15 more to go in the regular season. Before you know it's going to be fucking Christmas. It's coming. Yeah, what can I say? No big, not really a lot of big shockers. Some teams seem to have woken up, and others are, as you know, what I'd like to describe as the episode I debuted last week with Myron Cope. It seems more and more, I proved a lot of let's not start sucking each other's dicks quite yet, this week in particular. I mean, a lot of games. I mean, you know, let's start with Thursday night. It was Jets and Bills. I mean, any big shocker there? The Jets were just due to finally knock those assholes off. San Francisco and Carolina, really, I mean, it looks impressive, but at the end of the day, it really wasn't. You know, Baltimore and Cleveland, boy, Cleveland's still Cleveland. You know, Tennessee and Detroit, Kansas City and Houston. I mean, an Andy Reid team finally choking. Oh, wow, Houston, whatever. New England and Miami, big fucking shocker there. New Orleans and New York. What happened? Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. I mean, it was predicted here. We knew the Yinzers was going to pull that off. Cincinnati, you shit the bed. And the best part was the entire game was on grass and in the rain. Dallas and Washington. This I'm very surprised by. Yes and no. Surprised Dallas would kind of pull it together. I got lulled into for some dumb reason thinking Washington would get their shit together. But all right, fuck it. I take all that back. You know what? It's the 50-year-old whiskey talking. And Arizona and Tampa Bay, thank God. Thank you, Arizona, for waking up. Seattle and Los Angeles, I love seeing the uniforms. Denver and Indy, probably should have watched this instead of getting lulled in that Rams-Seahawks game. Or probably should have watched this one as well. And I'm glad I didn't watch that. This one, I just was spent at that point from watching Rams and Seahawks. And finally, on Monday night, I had nothing in me to care, even give a fuck about watching this. It is kind of impressive and surprising to see Philadelphia 2-0, but you know what? Everyone, calm down. Let's not start sucking each other's dicks quite yet. There's not a lot of tape still on Carson Wentz. At some point, he will look like a rookie first-round pick. All right, coming up next on the Stiff Arm is the Reverend. He will join us as we pay tribute to the late, great Charlie India. It was 1 year ago today that Charlie India left us. So, Charlie, this episode goes out to you, my man. Here's, look, I'm not being a pussy. I'm actually drinking straight scotch. For you, brother. And we'll be back with some more Stiff Arm. And we're back on the Stiff Arm with Ron Mexico. Joining me, original Stiff Arm co-host, all the way from sunny Brazilian-filled South Florida. Are there any Brazilians outside your window today, Reverend?
There are actually none out here today. I'm disappointed.
Me too, man. I was hoping they'd get some ass report while I was on the air with you.
I can always go outside. I'm sure there's some walk around the neighborhood.
Are you imbibing while we're doing this show today?
Yes, I'm imbibing.
All right, good. Well, raise your glass real quick because today is the day that 1 year ago today, Charlie India went off to the big bar in the sky. So if you're drinking one, here's our toast to Charlie India. You grumpy motherfucker.
Yep. It feels like it was just the other day.
I know. I was like, holy shit! It's been a fucking year already. So week 2 was, as I was saying. Unfortunately, the last game he and I watched together was Brunswick and Miami. That was the last game he and I watched together. I was like, of all games, I was like, thanks. Shit. So anyway, you and I were talking last week about Hines Ward and Jason Taylor and a couple of players, guys that we watched that we were in our 20s are now eligible for the Hall of Fame. And you brought up a really good question. You were saying that it seems like they're almost running out of kind of like movie ideas. It's kind of like the same thing with the Hall of Fame. It's like they're running out of guys that I feel are worthy enough to put into the Hall of Fame. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's part of it is that, I think that we grew up, you and I, we grew up in a generation where there was a big gap between being a regular football player and a superstar. And I think that definition has blurred these days because I don't think there's any superstar football players anymore.
No, there's like guys now who have, if you have, I think it's almost like about like 5 or 6 good consecutive seasons, that almost makes you Hall of Fame worthy now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even, we grew up watching, a golden age, I think, of especially quarterbacks, obviously Dan Marino and, even some of the quarterbacks that we hated playing against the Dolphins, but, someone like a Jim Kelly and
Elway,
Elway,
but that,
even some of the considered quote unquote backups were pretty good players.
right.
So I feel now is like if somebody has, like you said, 1 or 2 big years, they're claiming these guys to be, superstars and stuff.
Something. Well, I was looking. It's almost like the Hall of Fame now is kind of becoming. It's almost like the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Like every other star, you're like, who the fuck is this guy? In the NFL Hall of Fame, it's kind of like becoming that. It's like a combination of like the Hollywood Walk of Fame and like every Batman movie after the original one with Michael Keaton. Now, minus the Christian Bale ones, but all the ones from the second one to the George Clooney one, where they try to put in like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. And
Right.
and I've noticed since 2006, the past 10 years, the draft class has averaged 6 to 7 per draft class. 2 seasons ago, they had 8 fucking guys go in. 8 guys. It was like a fucking Mexican mariachi band. I mean, you don't need that. That's too much. I mean, Jesus, you figure each fucking speech is a half hour long? I mean, fucking A, that's a long night. 2004 and 5, those 2 years, they had 4 inductees.
Yeah.
4. Baseball this year only had 2.
2. Yeah.
And the list of guys, guys that are eligible now that are coming out, like the list that got us talking about this, it was Kurt Warner, Terrell Davis, Edgerrin James, T.O., Hines Ward was the one who Myron Cope has claimed his undying love for as his favorite Steeler of all time. Shame on you. It should be someone from the 70s team. Hines Ward was a good player, but again, is he Hall of Fame worthy? I mean, he was a tough player. I mean, are his numbers statistically that good that is there any other old timer wide receiver that should be in prior to him?
Well, if you compare him to the crop that you just named, he probably is a Hall of Famer, but I don't think he would even be on the ballot if that thing was. We're talking about players from the 80s.
I mean, I'm looking on this list. There's other wide receivers who are eligible. You have Isaac Bruce, Henry Ellard, Torrey Holt, Chad Johnson. Come on, Ocho Cinco is never getting into the Hall of Fame. Don't be fucking high, people. Derek Mason, T.O., Sterling Sharp, Jimmy Smith, a Jaguar? No, I'm sorry, you're not fucking getting in. Rod Smith, Hines Ward. I mean, the only names in there that really jump out to me is Isaac Bruce, maybe a Rod Smith, and a Hines. I mean, Hines Ward would be dead because all 3 of those guys played, except for Bruce, who finished a 49er, but for the most part, played his entire career with the Los Angeles Rams of St. Louis. Rod Smith was a Bronco for the longest time. Got his 2 rings with Elway towards the end there. Hines Ward. I don't know if this is their first or second, but I mean, those are the only guys in that list I would even consider. I mean, the quarterback list. I mean, majority of them. This is who else is besides Kurt Warner. They have Drew Bledsoe, who deserves to go in. If it wasn't for his fucking lung, we all know my opinion on that. His lung goes in, not just Bledsoe. Bledsoe's lung.
Cracked sternum should go.
His cracked sternum, everything. They should break off a piece of his rib and put it in there. Now, Randall Cunningham, Doug Flutie, Donovan McNabb, Steve McNair, Sims, I mean, not really any of them. I mean, yes, Sims was a Super Bowl MVP, but does does that mean that fucking Larry Brown's going to go into the Hall of Fame? So just because a guy's a Super Bowl MVP, I don't think necessarily warrants him going in. Do you?
No, I mean, like you said, I mean, it's I don't have these people's stats on hand, but
if you're not talking stats, what should be the requirement besides statistics? What else what other kind of what else should a player have that should qualify that player for the Hall of Fame?
Well, that's the thing, because in baseball they make a big deal because of the steroid scandal that they don't want to put anybody who got convicted of a positive test. They have almost like a moral conduct clause. Is that something that
I think it's a load of horse shit.
Writers count?
I think you should let him in. That shows at least, hey, you know what? The Raiders say if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. At least they knew, hey, I'm not gonna fucking cut this if I don't fucking bust my ass and do something.
Right.
That's what I think. Fuck it, let him in.
So, I mean, if it's besides that, I mean, there's a whole bunch of intangibles that go beyond stats to me, And who votes for the Football Hall of Fame? I know in baseball the writers.
It's the same thing. It's sports writers, and the thing that's really fucked up too. It just seems like a lot of guys that they're putting in the Hall of Fame are almost just like because of their personality or how outlandish they were on the field, they make him an analyst, and it's just like as soon as they're an analyst, it's like, oh, this guy's got to be a Hall of Famer. It's like, and there are certain guys in there, and it's like, one guy I really liked and respected as a player, and I just still scratch my head. Although he was a second ballot, was like Strahan. Like, was Strahan that good? Like, I love Michael Strahan, but it's like, I mean, I definitely do not think Warren Sapp should have got it in front of him. I mean, I think there are some older, but my point is there's a lot of older players I feel that should have got in. I think Strahan should have got in. Sapp, at some point should have got in, but I don't think as soon as they did. Strahan, I think on the second ballot was fair enough. Sapp was that was fucking insulting. That was just insulting. And you got a guy like Kevin Green. Like, Kevin Green I liked. He was a fucking crazy man. He was a pass rusher. I love my pass rushers, but is Kevin Green really a Hall of Fame pass rusher? I mean, did he disrupt the NFL?
He played I don't think there's enough body of evidence there,
But yet he's in. He's one of those guys that falls in the parameters of what you and I are talking about. 4 to 5 good seasons, enough to get you a fucking participation medal, it seems like, in the NFL. I mean, there's dudes like Jerry Kramer, who was like a foundation of the Green Bay Packers in there when they were the NFL champions and then in the first 2 Super Bowls. I mean, he was a huge piece of the line. He's not in the Hall of Fame because there's too many Packers in there. There are elements of the Steelers. Guys like L.C. Greenwood, Donnie Shell. There's still members of that Steel Curtain defense who deserve to go in there. Can't. Too many Steelers. It's not fair. Not fair to fucking shit. If the team was good, the team was good. Those players should go. You agree with me or you know?
So, but who's saying that? The writers?
The writers. That's like
that's what they're justifying it?
Yeah, that's like one of those unwritten rules and things like they don't talk about or bring up. It's like because, there's too many Steelers, there's too many Packers, there's too many of this. But yet you'd like to throw all this other shit in to give them a fucking good participation feel? Fuck you.
Well, my answer to that to that answer would be, if that player were on a different team, would you put him in? If like you said, L.C. Greenwood, if he played for the Packers or he played for Kansas City, would he be in with the same type of numbers?
Yeah, but that
without the Super Bowl wins?
But that's comparing it to today's standards, where guys don't stay on teams for a long time, and they don't have systems like they used to. Now it's totally I mean that's probably why it's 3-4 years, because that's only about the length of a guy lasts on a team because of free agency and the salary cap. So
maybe we have to change the way we look at things. Maybe those guys that we just mentioned do deserve to get in because we're probably old-fashioned in the way we think it.
We're not old-fashioned. We're just fucking right, is what we are. We're fucking right. So face it. So there you go. What's the culprit of all this? Fucking the salary cap. That's what it is. There you go. We just solved it all, man. In 12 minutes, we figured that shit out. We were that fucking good. He's speechless. Anyway, thank you, Reverend. I appreciate your time here on the Stiff Arm with Ron Mexico. Once again, this is Ron Mexico signing off. I don't know, I'm just getting redundant at this point. I can't believe we did it that fast. But as they say in French Canada, au revoir.